Incredible act of kindness, a waitress's free meal for a veteran unveils an amazing military surprise. In the heart of Maplewood, a small Midwestern town, the diner buzzed with life. The scent of freshly brewed coffee and the sound of sizzling bacon danced in the air. Laura, a 30-something waitress, glided between tables, her smile as warm as the comfort food she served. Life hadn't been easy, especially with her ailing mom at home, but every customer felt like family to her. She believed in kindness, in small gestures that could change a life. One chilly autumn afternoon, Jack walked in. He was a weathered soul whose unkempt clothes told tales of hardship. His military insignia still clung to him with an air of pride, and something in his eyes tugged at Laura's heartstrings. She saw the world in shades of gray, but Jack, a veteran who seemed lost, needed more than a meal. She approached him with a gentle smile. "How about a hot cup of soup and a free sandwich?" He looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. "Are you serious?" he asked, his voice rough, betraying the battles he fought both in the field and within. Laura nodded, pouring a steamy cup of soup and placing the sandwich in front of him with shaky hands, feeling the weight of her own worries lift slightly. Jack's eyes softened, and for the first time in a long while, he felt seen. As word spread among the regulars, the atmosphere in the diner shifted. They were abuzz about the upcoming fundraiser for veterans, and the mixed reactions emphasized the town's growing divisions. Laura overheard snippets of conversation, the murmurs discussing the struggles of veterans, economic inequality, and the stigma surrounding homelessness. Each word felt like a weight pressing down on her. Jack's stoic demeanor started to crack as kindness poured in. Patrons who once turned a blind eye now rallied around him. Yet, as their support grew, his pain unveiled itself. The battles he fought haunted him, relentlessly battling within his mind. In those moments, Laura felt a strange connection, an invisible thread linking her to his suffering. She couldn't help but think about her late father, a war veteran himself, and how he might have known Jack. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tensions flared as the fundraiser approached. What once was a place of comfort now turned into a battleground of ideas. When an argument erupted over Jack's situation, Laura felt her resolve surging. She needed to stand up and defend the dignity of those who served. These men and women fought for this country. They deserve our respect and understanding. She shouted, feeling the heat of her words punch through the air. In that moment, she realized that her fight was not just for Jack, but for her own family legacy too. The diner, once her sanctuary, became the epicenter of a transformation that was both personal and communal. As the last drop of coffee was poured for the day, hope mingled with uncertainty. Would the community rally together or allow their prejudices to divide them further? Jack's presence and her courageous stance left Laura tangled in possibilities, igniting questions about empathy, honor, and the true roots of kindness. Laura stood behind the counter, her heart racing. The arguments that had erupted in the diner lingered in the air like an unwelcome fog. She could still hear the heated discussions, the dismissive remarks about Jack, the whispers that painted him as a burden instead of a hero. Yet, that outburst had awakened something within her. She felt a fire igniting in her, a determination to show her community the true meaning of compassion. As the last patron shuffled out, Laura took a deep breath and glanced over at Jack. He sat at his table, untouched by the surrounding chaos, staring out the window as if searching for something just beyond the horizon. The warmth of the diner contrasted starkly with the chill outside, but Jack seemed lost in a world that felt much colder. She approached him cautiously, her heart full of unspoken words. "Hey, how are you doing?" she asked softly, pulling up a chair beside him. Jack turned, surprise flickering in his eyes, but then he returned to his distant gaze. "I'm managing," he replied, his voice low and weary. "Just thinking." "About what?" Laura pressed gently, hoping to coax him out of his shell. "About home. The one I thought I'd come back to, but it's all different now," he admitted, his voice cracking. There was a vulnerability in him that made Laura's heart ache. She understood this feeling of loss, this sense of navigating a world that seemed unwelcoming. "I get that," she whispered. "My dad was a veteran too. He never talked about the war, but I could tell it weighed on him. It's like this invisible burden." Jack turned to her, surprise etched on his face. "You never forget, do you?" "No," Laura replied, her eyes glistening. "But maybe we can help each other remember what matters." A silence settled between them, heavy yet comforting. Suddenly, the door swung open and a group of locals strolled in, laughter echoing off the walls. The jovial tone brought a pang of anxiety to Laura. Would they see Jack as she did? Or would their prejudices spiral into the ugliness she feared? She straightened her back, a new resolve tightening her grip on the edge of the table. "Listen, Jack," she said, her voice steady but low enough not to draw unnecessary attention. "They're holding that fundraiser soon, right? I think I want to speak out. About you, about the veterans, about the stories everyone seems to ignore." Jack's brows furrowed, his expression a mix of surprise and doubt. "You don't have to do that for me." "No, I want to. You see, the way people treat you, it's not right," she continued, feeling the weight of her choice settle on her shoulders. "And I can't just stand by and let them judge without knowing the truth. I believe in what you did for our country. You deserve to be honored." For a moment, she feared she had overstepped, but then she saw it. The faintest flicker of hope in Jack's blue eyes. It was a small light, barely visible, but she was certain it was there. "I'd appreciate that," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "More than you know." As more customers filled the diner, a sense of determination thrummed in Laura's chest. They were about to embark on something bigger than herself, a call for unity, a chance for understanding. But what she didn't expect was the resistance she'd face. Would her community embrace this mission, or would it only deepen the divide? Her heart raced with both excitement and fear as she stood up, looking around at the bustling diner, now filled with unfamiliar faces. She had to find a way to turn their indifference into action. Will Laura's bold stance rally the town together or spiral into a deeper conflict? The air crackled with urgency, and the answer loomed just ahead. Laura took a breath as she stepped away from Jack's table. The clatter of plates and the murmur of laughter filled the diner, but in her mind, it all faded to a distant hum. She saw a couple of the locals she recognized, a few regulars who had laughed just moments ago, offering little more than idle chatter over the day's special. Now, they were oblivious to the quietly powerful moment that had just transpired between her and Jack. She moved through the diner with purpose, clearing a few tables. Yet, instead of mundane tasks, her mind swirled with thoughts of the fundraiser. How could she frame her story to touch the hearts of the community? Would they listen? Or would they simply dismiss it as another plea that didn't concern them? As she washed her hands at the sink, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. The determination in her eyes burned bright. She wouldn't change who they were overnight, but she could plant a seed. She could create a ripple that might someday grow into a wave. "Hey, Laura." One of the locals, Ted, waved her over, his hearty laugh cutting through her contemplations. "Got an extra slice of pie for that vet over there?" "I'll cover it." The comment stole her breath. It should have felt warm. A kind gesture. But beneath it lay a tone she recognized too well, a mix of mockery and pity. She forced a smile. "Oh, you mean Jack?" she replied, trying to mask her irritation. "He's a person, Ted. A veteran who served our country. Maybe try talking to him instead? His brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. What? I was just trying to be nice, Laura. Nice doesn't come from a place of assumptions, she shot back, surprising even herself with the strength of her indignation. You know he's been through more than we can imagine. Calm down, it was just a joke, he said, waving his hand dismissively as Laura turned away, her heart still racing from the encounter. The laughter of the others settled in her ears again. It felt melancholic. She returned to Jack, who was looking more solid in his silence, though his eyes held a hint of weariness. Looks like I have some work to do, she said, a newfound fire igniting her inner resolve, but I want you to know, Jack, I'm not giving up on people. We can show them who you really are. That's mighty brave, he murmured, his voice gaining a thread of warmth, but be careful. Not everyone is open to change. I know, Laura replied, meeting his eyes, but if I don't start, who will? Just as her words hung in the air, the door swung open again. A young soldier, barely 20, stepped inside. He carried a military duffel bag over his shoulder and his uniform was still fresh, new creases standing out starkly against the fabric. He looked around, unsure but with an urgency in his stride. Jack visibly stiffened, his body tightening as if bracing for impact. Laura immediately sensed the tension. She remembered the look in Jack's eyes when he spoke of home, that longing mixed with dread. Would this new arrival dredge up old wounds? Hey, you all right? She called to the soldier, her voice steady but laced with concern. The soldier nodded slowly, his gaze darting to Jack, who had instinctively shrunk back in his seat. I saw you sitting here, the soldier stammered, a tentative friendliness in his tone as he made his way toward them. I just wanted to say thank you for your service. Laura's heart raced even faster now. What would Jack say? Would he pull back harder, retreat into his shell again? Or could he see the bridge being built before him? Jack, this is your moment, she thought, feeling the weight of the air grow heavier with anticipation. Would he embrace this surprising kindness, or would the moment slip through his fingers? Only time would tell as the diner buzzed with life outside their small pocket of hesitation. In that charged moment, everything felt poised on the brink of something extraordinary. Jack's eyes, once clouded with apprehension, began to shift. The young soldier stood there, waiting for a response, and for the first time in a long while, there was a glimmer of hope dancing in the corners of Jack's gaze. Laura held her breath, praying that the moment wouldn't collapse under the weight of old memories. Thank you, Jack said softly, barely above a whisper. His voice was hoarse, as if the words were rusty from disuse. But they were genuine. The soldier smiled, relief flooding his features. I just wanted to say it means a lot. You know, to have someone like you out there, it makes a difference. Jack shifted in his seat, the tension in his body slowly unwinding. The walls he built around himself began to crack. Laura watched as the soldier, full of energy and youth, seemed to be unknowingly dismantling the fortress Jack had retreated into. I did what I could, Jack replied, his voice gaining momentum. Just tried to help my brothers and sisters. The soldier nodded, understanding suddenly blooming in his eyes. Yeah, I get that. I'm new with my unit, but I hope I can make a difference too. The haze of uncertainty lifted, even for just a moment. Jack was opening up, a window to a world concealed beneath layers of hurt. Laura felt that weight lift not just for Jack, but for her too. She rushed to their table, her heart fluttering with excitement, the thought of a burgeoning connection igniting her enthusiasm. Can I get you anything? Coffee, water, maybe a slice of pie? She asked, putting on her best cheerful face while slyly waiting for the soldier's response. I'm good, thanks, the soldier said, looking over at Jack. What about you? Jack hesitated, his eyes flickering with doubt. I'm fine. But Laura could sense the flicker of vulnerability nudging him. She wouldn't let him retreat again. "Come on, man," she said, hoping to entice him. "You deserve a treat. Why not get that pie? I'll be back with 2 slices, just a second." She turned to leave, barely containing her excitement. As Laura moved toward the kitchen, she couldn't help but glance back. Jack was speaking to the soldier, his posture less guarded now, his fingers nervously tapping on the table as though he was sharing not just words but fragments of his experience. "Just take it slow," she whispered to herself, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her. With each step toward the kitchen, she realized the transformation wasn't just in Jack, it was in everyone around them too. Behind the counter, she caught Ted's eye. His expression showed disbelief and a flicker of regret, as if he were finally understanding the depth behind the man he had dismissed. When she returned with the slices of pie, she paused at the table, absorbing the warmth radiating between Jack and the soldier. "Here we go. A slice of comfort for 2 brave souls," she announced, placing the plates down proudly. "Thanks, Laura," Jack murmured, his focus still on the soldier. They shared the pie as though it were a bridge, making it easier for Jack to peel back the layers. Laughter bubbled up, anxious and tentative at first, but soon it solidified into something real. As she stood watching, Laura felt the old diner's energy shift. It buzzed like a happy hive, threads of connection weaving between her, Jack, and the soldier. She leaned against the counter, heart swelling with the promise of what may come next. And then, just as she was about to take a breath, the door swung open again. This time it was more than just a person, it was a group of veterans, some wearing caps with their units emblazoned on them, others with badges that told stories of their own. With each new entry, the air thickened with anticipation and a sense of urgency. Laura's heart raced at the thought of how this moment could evolve. Would this bring Jack more comfort, or would it overwhelm him all over again? As she watched the group approach, Laura knew this was a turning point. One small act of kindness had ignited a chain reaction. But would they be able to forge ahead, or would the weight of the past pull them back? The door swung wider, and Laura's heart beat faster as the new veterans filled the space with memories and camaraderie. Their laughter echoed through the diner, blending with the hum of conversation and the aroma of fresh pie. Jack's gaze snapped to them, then quickly back to his slice, his fingers momentarily stilled. "Jack," the soldier said, nudging him gently, "look who just walked in. Your brother's in arms." A flurry of emotions flickered across Jack's face: curiosity, anxiety, and something like nostalgia. Laura, sensing the shift, leaned in closer, ready to cut through the tension. "Hey, they might be just the encouragement you need," she said, trying to keep her voice light. "You never know, it might be good to reconnect." Jack's eyes remained fixed on the veterans. They were sharing stories, all smiles and playful nudges. Ancient bonds forged in hardship and sacrifice danced around them like a warm blanket. Laura could almost see their histories woven into every grin, every boisterous exclamation. "Maybe you should say hi," she encouraged, not wanting the moment to slip away. "You have so much in common." Jack's shoulders tightened again. It was as if Laura had flicked a switch. In an instant, he was small again, retreating into the shadows of his past. The connectivity he had begun to feel seemed to evaporate. "They want to talk to me," he muttered, his voice tinged with the bitterness of memories that had yet to fade. "I don't belong with them anymore." "You do belong, Jack." Laura insisted, her own heart pounding with urgency. "You fought for them, like they fought for you. Just give it a chance." The soldier at their table pulled his attention back. "This could be your moment, man. Just walk over. If they're anything like what I've seen, they'll be more than glad to see you." Jack hesitated, the internal struggle evident on his face. The slice of pie before him seemed to represent a choice. But just as Laura thought they were reaching a breakthrough, he sank deeper into his chair, fingers now curling around his plate protectively. "Jack," the soldier pressed, sincerity igniting his voice, "believe me, they need to hear from you too. You're part of that story. With a tentative breath, Jack stared at the group again. They had noticed him now, those familiar faces from a life once shared. Laura held her breath, willing him to take that first step. Her fingers drummed anxiously against the counter. At last, Jack's gaze met hers, and for a fleeting moment, she saw a flicker of decision spark within him, a willful determination battling against the storm of fear. "Okay," he whispered, inching up from the table. The moment felt electric, anticipation hanging in the air like steam. Every eye in the diner seemed to follow him as he approached the group, his body language a mix of uncertainty and resolve. Laura smiled wide, the warmth flooding back into her heart as she watched Jack take those steps. Then, just as he reached the first veteran, Laura caught sight of Ted again, muttering something under his breath as he surveyed the scene. She turned to him, expecting a harsh reaction, but found only the melting expression of someone slowly grasping the moment as significance. "Looks like he is going to be fine," Ted said quietly, his voice devoid of the sharpness she had grown accustomed to. "I didn't realize how much he needed this." Laura nodded, her heart swelling with elation. She wanted to run up to Jack, to celebrate that first step and the connection sparking between him and the veterans. But just as Jack began speaking, the door flung open a second time, and in walked a figure Laura hadn't expected to see. It was someone from Jack's past, a ghost that threatened to haunt this fragile moment. Her stomach dropped. Would this twist of fate spell disaster for Jack's budding connection, or was it an opportunity for true healing? Laura could only pray that Jack would have the strength to face his past head-on. The figure stepped through the door, and the joyful atmosphere in the diner snapped taut with tension. Jack stopped mid-sentence, his voice trailing off as that face, weathered and familiar, settled into his line of sight. It was Tommy, a friend, a brother, and a reminder of scars that ran deeper than any physical wound. Laura felt the energy shift. Conversations hushed to murmurs, and the laughter faded as eyes turned toward the unexpected reunion. Tommy stood frozen, a mixture of surprise and concern rippling across his features. Jack's expression darkened, his vulnerability now raw and exposed. "Jack," Tommy called, his voice hesitant, heavy with unspoken words. "It's been a while." Jack's breath hitched. He clenched his jaw but remained silent. Laura's heart raced, sensing the walls Jack had carefully built beginning to tremble. This was the moment of truth, where the past collided sharply with the fragile threads of hope Jack had just begun to weave. "Why don't you just talk to him?" she urged gently, trying to push Jack's feet forward with her mind. But he remained rooted to the spot, caught in a whirlwind of memories, the laughter, the battles, the final day that had changed everything. Tommy stepped closer, hands raised slightly, as if trying to bridge the gap. "I heard you were back in town. I wanted to see you." His voice was cautious, like he was navigating a minefield. Around them, the diner felt charged, the air heavy with anticipation, as if the patrons were holding their breaths in unison. "Why?" Jack finally replied, the bitterness creeping into his tone. "To tell me how I messed up? To remind me of everything?" Laura wanted to interject, to paint a picture of the camaraderie, the bond that could strengthen this moment. Yet all she could do was watch as the storm brewed between them. She grasped the edge of the counter, almost willing herself to intervene. Tommy's face fell, and the hurt was palpable. "No, Jack. I missed you." Tension hung like a thick fog, but then a flicker of something else pierced the atmosphere, an undeniable bond of brotherhood, forged in fire, regardless of the time or distance. Laura could feel it as surely as she could feel the plate beneath her hands. Just then, Ted leaned over to Laura. "There's more to this than they know," he whispered, his expression both knowing and concerned. Her eyes darted back to Jack and Tommy, who now stood inches apart, their eyes locked in a battle of unexpressed emotions. Without thinking, Laura found herself slipping off her stool, instinctively moving closer, wanting to be part of whatever connection could bloom from this confrontation. Jack's voice broke the silence. "You think you understand what I went through?" "I do, actually," Tommy replied, a steely resolve in his voice. We all do. We were there together. The realization hit Laura hard. Tommy fought alongside Jack, shared secrets and fears. Yet, life had pulled them apart, each carrying their own burdens, their own regret. Maybe the real fight is in facing what happened, Ted said quietly, echoing Laura's thoughts. Jack's eyes flickered with hurt, anger and even glimmers of hope. He had the chance to let those emotions out not just with Tommy, but in front of the diner, this unofficial family that had gathered. A choice hovered just above the surface, threatening to tumble into either catharsis or chaos. Laura's heart raced. In this moment, would Jack choose to embrace the weight of shared pain or slip back into isolation? Would he acknowledge the kinship that once held him tight? What if this is just the tip of the iceberg? A thought echoed in her mind. As the seconds turned into what felt like an eternity, questions loomed. Would Jack seize the moment and take that leap? Was this the moment of truth they had all been waiting for, or were they about to witness another heartbreaking retreat? The door swung solely upon uncertainty, leaving everyone holding their breaths, aching to see what came next. Jack's fingers trembled on the counter, tension radiating from his body. He looked back at Tommy, searching for the words that felt lodged in his throat. The diner's murmurs faded into a muffled background noise, his world narrowing down to just him and the familiar face before him. All those years spent apart felt like a heavy blanket, stifling and suffocating. I didn't ask for this, Jack finally spat, the edge in his voice sharper than he intended. Tommy winced, the hurt flitting across his face like a fleeting shadow. Neither did I. But here we are, aren't we? He took a step closer, and Jack flinched, as if the mere act of advancing brought back all the ghosts of their shared past. Laura could see the conflict written all over Jack's face. Part of him wanted to lash out, to shove Tommy back into the memories they both so desperately wanted to escape, while another whispered agonizingly of reconciliation. I'm sorry, Tommy said, his tone dropping, filled with a sadness that seemed to mirror Jack's. I thought after everything we endured together, we'd at least have a chance to talk. I just wanted to check in, to see how you were. Check in? Jack interrupted, his voice rising. You think checking in makes it all okay? You don't understand what I've been through. Then help me understand. Tommy pleaded, his eyes glazing over with unshed tears. I'm here now. I came back for you, to help you heal. We were brothers once. A whisper passed through the diner's crowd, a faint agreement echoed from the back. They were listening, investing themselves in Jack's pain, holding their breath like spectators at a tense play. Laura could feel their eyes on her too, as if sensing she was the bridge that might connect the two men. Was? Jack's voice was barely a whisper. What makes you think we're anything but ghosts to each other now? Because it's still there, Tommy said, intensity in his gaze. What we had, what we fought for. It hasn't gone anywhere, Jack. You're still part of me. Jack's expression flickered, vulnerability piercing through the armor he had so carefully donned over the years. Moments from their past flashed through his mind, the laughter, the camaraderie, and the nights spent confiding their fears. A weight stirred in his chest, aching with the desire for connection but weighed down by the fear of revisiting that pain. Laura stepped in, her voice steady yet soothing. You don't have to choose between the past and the present, Jack. You can carry both. Tommy nodded vigorously, a beacon of earnestness. You don't have to go through this alone. Let me be part of your healing. We can be part of each other's lives again. For a moment, the diner fell into silence, the air thick with the impending choice Jack faced. Hatred and sorrow collided with longing and hope inside him, battling for dominance. He looked around him, seeing the faces of the patrons, recognizing their shared humanity, the kindness in their eyes. I don't know if I can do this, he finally admitted, his voice cracking. Tommy's expression softened, and an understanding passed without words. One step at a time then. Let us take that first step together. Jack's breath stuttered as he fought the emotions welling within him. Could he really face this past? Could he trust Tommy again amidst a storm of memories and pain? As Jack opened his mouth to respond, the bell above the diner door jingled again, and in stepped a newcomer, cloaked in a familiar uniform, the indelible mark of time served. A collective gasp rippled through the room, drawing every eye toward the latest twist in their unfolding drama. Could this new arrival be a sign from the universe? What did this sudden change mean for Jack and Tommy? Would this moment unite them or shatter the fragile thread of connection they'd begun to weave back together? Jack's heart raced as he turned to face the entrance. The stranger stood tall, a well-worn military jacket hanging loosely on his broad shoulders. His eyes scanned the diner, taking in the flickering neon lights and bustling chatter. In that moment, everything else faded: the arguments, the struggles, Tommy's pleading gaze, all overshadowed by the sudden, heavy reality of the man before him. The veteran stepped forward, his face a mix of pride and uncertainty. As he approached the counter, Laura's eyes lit up with recognition. She paused with the coffee pot in hand, her smile warm and welcoming. It was a kindness she often extended, a small gesture in a large world, but this felt different. "Can I get you anything, sir?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine respect. The veteran nodded slowly, his gaze shifting between Laura and the other patrons who had grown quiet in his presence. "Just a coffee will be fine, thank you." He looked like he had walked straight out of a memory, one that whispered loudly to Jack and Tommy both. The silence was thick with tension. Jack felt the weight of nostalgia pressing on him as snippets of their shared past flickered back: hikes in the woods, late-night talks about dreams and fears, and the shared sense of purpose that had once bound them together. "Do you know him?" Tommy whispered, trying to shake Jack out of his trance. Jack raked his fingers through his hair, his eyes glued to the man's face as something deep within stirred. I think so," he murmured, unsure. Laura placed the steaming cup of coffee in front of the veteran, her gaze unwavering. "It's on the house," she said, her kindness flowing as effortlessly as the coffee. "Thank you for your service." The veteran's face softened, gratitude warming his hardened features. "You don't have to do that," he said quietly, taking a seat at the counter. But Laura only smiled, shaking her head gently. "I want to. It's important to honor those who've given so much." As the diner buzzed back to life, Jack felt a strange pull toward the veteran. Memories that had lain dormant began to resurface. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were meant to cross paths at this moment. "Who is he?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think he served with us," Tommy replied, his brow furrowing. The confusion mirrored Jack's own as they both struggled to piece together this unexpected puzzle. Their eyes locked onto the veteran, who was now sipping his coffee, the steam curling around his face and revealing a sense of calm that seemed out of place. Jack could feel Tommy's anxiety next to him, the two of them inching closer to each other, drawing strength from shared memories. "What if he holds answers?" Tommy finally said, voicing the thought that had been lingering in Jack's mind. "Or just more pain," Jack cautioned, taking a deep breath as anger surged within him again. Yet beneath that anger, there was a flicker of hope. Could this stranger help bridge the gap between them? Could he connect them to the past they both wanted to understand? Before Jack could make a decision, the veteran turned slightly, catching their gaze. Recognition flickered in his eyes as he seemed to study them both intently. "Jack? Tommy?" he asked, his voice rough but steady. "It's been a long time." Jack's heart sank, the enormity of the past crashing back like waves on the shore. He thought he was prepared, but the reality of it hit harder than he expected. "James." Jack breathed, the name escaping his lips like a prayer. The diner's chatter paused once more, the weight of their reunion hanging in the air. Would their shared history bind them closer together or unravel the threads of healing they had both started to weave? As Jack and Tommy approached James, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, their hearts racing. The next step could either heal old wounds or open new ones wide. Would the past's grip on their present lead them to reconciliation or deeper sorrow? Jack felt a surge of emotion, nostalgia mixed with trepidation. James, the name brought with it a torrent of memories, some welcome, others not. The last time they had been together felt like a lifetime ago, but the space between them had shrunk as James regarded them with an intensity that pierced through the din of the diner. "Hey, it's good to see you," Jack managed, his voice shaky. Was it really good? Memories fought for space in his mind, images of laughter overshadowed by the darker waters they had navigated together. James smiled, but it was bittersweet. "Yeah, it is." His eyes flicked back and forth between the two men. "Too long, huh?" "Way too long," Tommy answered, stepping closer, the weight of his own uncertainty hanging in the air like a thick fog. Laura leaned against the counter, her job forgotten as she watched the three men. The coffee pot dangled limply in her hand. She sensed that something significant was unfolding and couldn't help but be drawn into the emotional tug-of-war. "Why now, James?" Jack blurted out. The question cracked the air, slicing through the moment. "Why are you here?" "I need to talk," James replied, his voice steady but the edges crumbling. "About everything. About what we left behind." Jack felt a knot tightening in his stomach. Every word carried the potential to crack open wounds that had only started to scab over. They could unravel or heal, depending on what was said next. Tommy glanced sideways at Jack, his eyes wide, as if searching for a sign. Should they probe further? Curiosity flickered in the air, but so did fear. "We're listening," Tommy said finally, his voice low. It wasn't a demand, it was an invitation. James took a deep breath, his jaw tightening as he wrestled with his thoughts. "I've been back for a bit," he began, searching the faces of his old friends, courage layering his words. "I tried to pick up the pieces but the pieces don't fit right. I see things. Hear things. The nightmares they never go away," Jack interjected, knowing all too well how the past haunted them. "No. They don't," James agreed, nodding slowly. "But there's more. I ran into someone recently, someone connected to us. They had things to say. Secrets. Things we never talked about." Jack's heart thudded loudly in his ears. Secrets? What could possibly come next? Did they really want these truths to surface? The air thickened with anticipation and dread. Tommy leaned in. "Who? What did they say?" James looked down at his coffee cup. "It's complicated. But I think it could help us if we're ready to face it. It's like pulling a thread from a sweater. At first, it feels harmless, but it can unravel everything underneath." Laura instinctively placed her hand on her heart, feeling the weight of the words. The diner whispered around them, customers engaged in their lives, oblivious to the gravity of the moment brewing at the counter. "I don't know if we're ready," Jack admitted, a heaviness in his chest. "What if it tears us apart instead?" James locked eyes with him, and in that moment, Jack saw the truth mirrored back. It was a reflection not just of their shared past but of their confusion about the future, the uncertainty of whether scars could really heal. "Sometimes," James replied, his voice softer now, "confronting the past is the only way to find peace." A tense silence unfolded like an unturned page, leaving the three men standing at a crossroads. Jack felt the weight of his decision pressing heavily on him. Was he brave enough to face the truth? As he navigated the flood of emotions, the door swung open and a gust of cold air swept through the diner, forcing Jack to shiver at the unexpected chill. Footsteps approached resonantly, filling the atmosphere with an unexpected urgency. Jack looked back at James. "What does it mean if we open this door?" The moment hung, unanswered, as reality loomed waiting, like a pause before the storm. What lay beyond that door? And were they prepared for what would come sweeping in next? Jack's heart raced, pounding against the confines of his chest as he faced James. Past and present collided in an explosive potential, forming a storm of uncertainty that swirled around them. James' gentle grip on the weight of their shared experiences held promise, but with that promise came the danger of unraveling everything they had worked to mend. "Facing what happened, it could tear us apart," Jack murmured, his voice a reflection of the doubt that crept through his mind. "I can't lose what little progress we've made." Tommy stepped forward, echoing the courage that Laura had sparked within him. "But running from it, that hasn't helped at all, has it? We can't keep avoiding the past. Maybe, just maybe, facing it together can heal our wounds instead of deepening them." The tension hung in the air, a fragile web threatening to snap under duress. Jack shifted his weight, searching for the resolve that felt so slippery. He met James' gaze, and the understanding shared between the two seemed to bridge the yawning gap that had formed over the years. Laura, standing off to the side, nodded subtly, offering her support like a flickering flame. "I've spent so many nights trying to outrun it," Jack admitted, the burden in his voice heavy. "I thought it was the only way to survive." James stepped closer, willing Jack to see this was about more than survival, it was about living. "Surviving isn't enough. We need to confront this together. If we don't, we'll be trapped, all three of us, in the ghost of our pasts." "What do you mean?" Jack asked, a knot tightening in his throat. "I met someone," James revealed, his voice steady yet tinged with hesitance. "A fellow veteran. He mentioned something about the loss dragging us down, how we owed it to each other and ourselves to confront the truth. It's not just about the choices made on the battlefield. It's about everything that came after, every scar and every regret." A hush fell over the diner, patrons now invested in the unfolding drama. Jack could feel their curious eyes on him, but it was just noise. The real weight lay between him, Tommy, and James, the seed of their shared histories, full of torn emotions and hesitations. "I don't want to be scared anymore," Jack whispered, feeling the vulnerability creep in. "But what if it hurts too much? That's the risk." "But sometimes you have to break to heal," Tommy said, his voice strong and certain. "You're not alone in this. We can face whatever comes next together." Jack took a breath, looking back at the faces crowding the diner. He saw concern, support, and perhaps a hint of solidarity. Their little community stood with them, yearning to understand and embrace their stories. He could feel them rallying behind him, willing him to take that leap. "You're right," Jack said finally, the words spilling from his lips with newfound courage. "I can't carry this burden alone anymore." The bell above the diner's door rang again, somehow signaling a final shift in Jack's decision. He turned to James and Tommy, steeling himself for the next step. "Let us face this. Let us find a way to bring clarity to what we lost and what we might still have," he declared. As those words echoed through the diner, the tension lifted, morphing into a collective breath, a calm after the storm. With renewed determination, Jack felt the weight on his chest ease. He was no longer battling shadows alone, he had his brothers beside him, ready to journey into the light together. Laura couldn't help but feel the waves of hope radiating from their table. Happiness bloomed in her chest, and she took a moment to cherish the camaraderie building at the counter, weaving an unexpected tapestry of unity around them. Time to make that connection, she decided aloud, moving back to the kitchen to grab a fresh pot of coffee, believing it might symbolize a new beginning. The very act of renewal pulsed through the diner as the trio acknowledged the truth that could no longer be silenced. Whether it brought them closer to peace or showed them the depths of their pain, they were ready to open the door together and confront whatever awaited them on the other side. Jack raised his head, looking at Tommy and James with a radiant smile, a glimmer of hope eclipsing fear. The strength and determination radiating from them blended into an unbreakable bond, a brotherhood reborn amidst shared scars and healing hearts. In that moment, Jack realized they were not just veterans seeking forgiveness or closure. They were a family, come together again through their shared stories, ready to light the way for one another. Fueled by courage and connection, they all took a collective step forward, ready to embrace the journey ahead, and from that moment, Laura couldn't hold back the tears of joy. This was magic in the making, a transformation inspired by soul-deep connections. And there, in the heart of Maplewood, the diner buzzed with life anew, ringing with hope, understanding, and the undeniable power of kindness. Now is the time for you to ignite your own spark. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your click changes everything. Comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't miss out. Join the community.